welcome to all in Steeler Nation. I'm Stan Savran from the Pittsburgh Steelers Radio Network, and welcome to our Time Machine, where we visit with past great Steelers, and no less an exception than our guest right now, former Steeler cornerback Dwayne Woodruff. Dwayne, great to see you. Can I call you Dwayne?
Yes.
Your honor, your judgeship?
Look, you've known me since day one. You can call me whatever you want.
Okay.
I've been called a lot of things. So,
I'll call you a
great
great
to see
football player. That's how I know you. You're drafted in the 6th round out of Louisville, where Dwayne is in the Hall of Fame, by the way. But it's unique in that you're drafted to a team that had won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, with the kind of personnel that was available coming into '79, did you think to yourself, I got drafted by the Steelers, that's a good thing, but how am I ever going to make this team?
You know, I felt exactly that way. I was so excited to be drafted. No one knew I was going to be drafted at all in any round. A teammate of mine, Nathan Poole and I, we were together. We lived in the same dorm. When I got drafted that first day, I was extremely excited. I got during that time, ESPN was just starting in '79. And so there was no draft on television. So we're listening to it on the radio, and it was delayed. And so when they were talking about, we're going into the last round today, the Steelers have the last pick. And so we turned everything off, and we would just go out and get something to eat. I got a phone call. I picked up the phone. It says, this is George Perlis with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I said, yeah, who is this guy? You're not getting me. So I hung the phone up. And I started off the door, and the phone rang again. I answered the phone again and said, don't hang up. This is really George Perlis with the Steelers. We just drafted you in the 6th round. And I was extremely excited to be drafted, even though I wasn't a Steeler fan at that particular time. But when I started thinking about the team that I was going to, that excitement went from here to here. And so instead of going out to eat, we went out and we started working out there. And during that time, the Steelers kept 7 defensive backs. And so they had Mel Blount, Hall of Famer, on one corner. They had Donnie Shell at safety, a Hall of Famer. They had Mike Wagner at free safety, and then they had a guy by the name of Ron Johnson, who was Rookie of the Year. And then the next, the other corners, they had Larry Anderson. He led the league in kickoff returns. They had a guy named Ray Odom, who had he was a journeyman, played all the positions. Then they had a guy named Tony Dungy, who led the team in interceptions. And then they had another guy that was coming back that year, missed the year before, by the name of J.T. Thomas. So they had 9 guys. They didn't have room for me. And I'm thinking, I better get ready. And so if I get released, at least I can get to another team. And we just started working out and came to training camp, and things worked out very well for me while I was here. And spent 12 years here with the league, with the Steelers, and couldn't have been better.
What was it like coming into camp and looking around the last of the, quote, dynasty teams? You won a ring that year. It's not just the people in the secondary. Jack Lambert is still there, and Jack Ham is still there. Joe Green is still playing. Some of the great offensive stars. Was there a sense of awe that you had to kind of put aside so you could compete?
Well, I don't know if there was a sense of awe, but it was being on a team that you knew was one of the best in the league, and to be part of that was amazing. One of the things that I thought about all the time was, no matter what I did in college or how well I played in college, I need to step up my game, because these guys are the best of the best. And just to watch, I'm on one corner, I look over in the other corner, and there's Bill Blount. And I said, this is a cream of the crop here. So you need to get better and do some things better, and expand your boundaries, your limitations, whatever they may be, and sort of put your best foot forward. And you can't doubt yourself. You have to believe that you can make plays and make things happen, and just try your best, put it out there.
Well, these things tend to run in cycles. You win the Super Bowl in '79, but a lot of the players you mentioned were getting on, and it was time.
And after winning the Super Bowl, I said, man, this is going to be great. I thought it was supposed to be like that every year.
Yeah. You think there were many more that you would?
Again, retirements, yeah, sort of changed the complexion of our team.
The interesting thing about that is that, they started to drop off, and, Joe retired, and, Jack had an injury which exacerbated his condition. But yet you remained pretty competitive in the early 80s, getting to the AFC Championship game in 1984 against Dan Marino and the Dolphins. So there was a level of maintaining a level of excellence there that most teams don't experience.
Right. The thing with the Steelers, when you look at our ownership, look at the coaches that we had as well. They were all at the top of their game. You couldn't get any better. The issues that we had during those years, again, was retirement. So when I came in, you could look at every position. There was nobody else in the league better than anybody else that we had at those positions. And then after retirement, we weren't filled with the talent that we had in the past, which made a difference. When we went to the AFC Championship game, when I look at that team and the team I came in with from '79 with all those guys, it was really like night and day. Going out and getting into a championship game, it was like, we were good, but we really weren't that good. It's easy when you're playing with that team. You can see. You look at one team, you look at the other. Say, yeah, we're pretty good, but we're nowhere near where we had been in the past. So it was just great to be in that championship game with the particular team that we had.
The latter half of the 80s, it was a difficult time. There wasn't a whole lot of winning going on. But then in '89, an upstart Steeler team, a game that I don't think any Steeler fan will ever forget, goes into Houston. Houston heavily favored in that game. Ends up in overtime. Rod Woodson forces a key fumble. Gary Anderson kicks a 51-yard field goal. I'll never forget the exuberance in that locker room at the Astrodome after that win. What do you remember about that game?
It was, even as a player, what the odds are. You know what the media and you guys are saying about the game, who's going to win, who's going to lose, and what your chances are. But as a player, you always think, what, every game you get into, you have a shot. And if you just play as hard as you can, don't make, the team that makes the least mistakes is probably going to come out and win the game. And I think we were so excited, after that win, is because when you look at the two teams and the history of that particular year, who's winning, who's losing, we weren't up there with Houston at that point. But to still go in and win a game, and that's, I'm not quite sure who said it, but that's why we play. That's why we play the game. We don't chalk it up before the game. You got to play the game, and the winner comes out on top. And we were fortunate enough to come out on top of that game, and it was exciting. And I think we were more excited than usual because that was a game we weren't supposed to win.
I think that win meant a great deal to Chuck because he had issues with Jerry Glanville, and it was extra sweet to beat him. I know that it wasn't a Super Bowl, but it was like won a Super Bowl for him.
Exactly. And Chuck, he keeps his emotions somewhat close to the vest, as we all know. But it meant a lot to him, and it meant a lot to all of us as well, particularly after being so high and winning so many games and going through that lull where you didn't win, and then to come and win a big game like that against a particular team that was in our division that we always want to beat anyway. I'm sure it was awfully sweet for him.
And you should have won the following week.
Yep.
That game was there.
Yep. We just, talent normally, rises to the top. And we just weren't had enough talent in every position to rise to the top where we should have been. But it was still good. We were still, had the capability and being in the playoffs and different things. But we just didn't have the talent in every position that you need to have.
I'll never forget that rain game in Miami.
Well, the one I remember in regard to that particular game was the fumble recovery that ended up in the touchdown. I think my memory's right, I think Cornell Lake had picked it up and lateraled it to me, and I took it in the end zone. And I tell you, that was it was like playing in a lake. You know, the way that stadium was built and the water just rolling down. And I mean, it was, you know, the water was up to your ankles during that game. And then after it stopped raining and the sun came out, field dried up like that, which was amazing. Always, that was a big win for us as well. You know, almost every game was a big win. You know, you only play, 16 games at that time, for the season. So, 1 or 2 games here and there is going to change your whole season, change your whole all season as well.
You are unique, not only in what you're doing now, but in the groundwork you did to achieve what you have now achieved. And you were attending law school while still playing for the Steelers. And I'm sure that's your own ambition, but getting back to Chuck and his mantra of you're going to need to get on with your life's work, was that in the back of your mind when you said, I'm going to go to law school while I'm still playing, as opposed to wait till I retire?
Well, I think, that's always in your mind. Chuck says you always have to prepare for your life's work, and what is that going to be? But also during that time, I worked even during the off season. We didn't get millions and millions of dollars where you could just, play football during the season and do nothing during the off season. So I worked during the off season as well. I was married and had a child, and 3 years later I had another child as well. And so I had to prepare in regard to what I was going to do. So yes, I took what Chuck said to heart. You need to prepare for your life's work. And so I decided, after thinking about it for a year or two, what did I want to do when I finished playing football? It was always my thought. I'd play in the National Football League for about 5 years. And after 5 years, I'm looking at myself, I'm going to be a relatively young man. I need to have a job, something to do. And so I knew a lot of lawyers, a lot of good friends of mine were lawyers. I said, I like the competitiveness in regard to the courtroom as well. So I think I can try law school. And Duquesne at that time was the only school here locally that had a night school program. And so that first year I went, all night, during the season as well as the off season.
How difficult was it in season? You're supposed to be studying playbook, studying film, that day tape, your upcoming opponent, and then have all these responsibilities in studying, taking exams. How difficult was it to do both?
Well, I think there are 2 things that really helped me. One, I was a veteran, been starting for a couple of years already. So in regard to watching film, I didn't have to watch it, hours and hours. I could watch film and have an idea what was going on, particularly in regard to, 6 of those games were against our conference opponents, so I knew them fairly well going forward. And so I had an idea of what was going on, so I didn't have to study, that long, for them. Otherwise, time-wise in school, I spent a lot of time in regard to studying, for class, but having that ability not to have to do extra work because I already knew what was going on the field allowed me to spend more time in regard to class, off the field. And the other thing was I had a terrific wife. Joy sort of picked up the reins and she was the taxi driver for the kids and getting food ready and everything that needed to go on at home. So I didn't have to be involved with that. She took care of all those things. So, for me as a player and as a person, I went to school and played football. All the other things I really didn't do. So it was like 4 years of my life, I sort of missed with the kids because I just wasn't there. So I'd go to school, I'd get home, class would be out at 9, 10 o'clock. I'd study to about midnight, go to bed, and do the same thing the next day. But Joy sort of picked up everything in regard to the house, the kids, making sure the bills were paid, all those things. So I didn't really have to do any of those things at all. So and when I look at my law degree, she earned it just as much as I did.
She's an amazing woman, always has been. As you look back on it, you have had immense success in 2 different paths. When you look back on your football career as a Steeler and still living in Pittsburgh, what are the things that come to your mind?
how great our fans are. I couldn't imagine, playing in any other city and having the support from our fans and people, for their team and for their players, the way that these fans have for us. It was just, was nothing. There was never any negative things from our players as well. And here, you hear all different news in regard to, Cleveland, even Cincinnati, and Philadelphia on the other side of the state in regard to issues they have with their fans. Never anything like that here in Pittsburgh. And it was just great to play in front of this team. And we had some lean years, but they were still there, always supporting us as well. You could always get a good deal on a good dinner here in Pittsburgh as well. And so I can't thank the Lord enough for allowing me to be here in this particular city with these particular fans. And it's still that way today. I mean, it's great. I've been out of the game now for, I hate to say how many years, but they never forget. They're still here. They're very supportive, and this is a good town to live in, to play in, and to raise a family. And I'm just fortunate enough to be part of it.
Once a Steeler, always a Steeler.
Without a doubt.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Well, thank you.
Great
Stan.
to talk to you again.
Appreciate it. All right, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.